Hello and good afternoon. Thank you so much for all being here. This panel is in English. If any of you need to use the translation, now's the moment. I'm absolutely delighted to present to you my three panelists. I'm going to introduce them very briefly because you actually have, thank you so much, you have their CVs in here, but we have on my immediate left, all going really well here. We have on my immediate left Cécile Verdier, who is an auctioneer, commissaire-priseur. She led Sotheby's France design department in 2008, but she is now with Christie's as their president France. Then next to her, in the middle, we've got Rob Weisberg, who is Invaluable's CEO, and that's since 2013. He'll explain to you about Invaluable. And finally, we have at the end Nanne Dekking. Some of you might have seen him earlier. He's putting in double time today. And he was vice president of Wildenstein and Company, and he was also Sotheby's worldwide head of private sales, but now he is president of TEFAF and also he founded, in fact, Art-tori, which is a secure digital registry of verified information on the blockchain. Those of you who were here earlier will know it. So amongst my papers, I have my notes. So the subject today, as you can see above you, is a question of delocalizing. Because we had this impression that the international market was going to concentrate on a few regions. And in fact, we know that Europe, and notably Great Britain, where I come from, the United States and China are the three major markets. But actually, what we're seeing is a sort of delocalization, and this is what we want to talk about. With auction houses, with fairs, dealers moving closer to their clients, including operating sale rooms, having fairs, and opening up their galleries all around the world. And for example, London's Thomas Dane is in Naples. Gallery Continua is in a number of different places, including Havana in Cuba. And of course, many galleries have now gone to Hong Kong or are going increasingly to Shanghai. TEFAF, and Nanne will talk to us about it, is extended to New York with 2 fairs. Frieze has gone to LA and New York, and Basel is obviously present in 3, in Miami Beach, in Hong Kong, as well as being in Switzerland. And of course, Christie's in the auction world, Christie's and Sotheby's have got worldwide a network. On top of that, this is just the physical, these are bricks and mortar operations, but we also now have the online world, and Rob will tell us more about how it can extend to every corner of the globe, just with a click of a mouse. And we also need to talk, and this has become a very hot topic, is the question of everyone, both people and artworks, traveling around the world and what this is doing to the global footprint. And perhaps that's where the online world can also be of help, cutting down on the ecological implications. So I'd like to start immediately with Cécile to tell us just a little bit about how Christie's is moving towards its clientele around the world.
Thank you. First of all, by essence, Christie's is at the same time a global and a very local company, because our purpose is to find objects to sell. Therefore, we need to have offices wherever we can find properties for sale. And at the same time, we are global because, of course, we are trying to find buyers on the new places that are appearing on the market. So we need to develop new offices to find new buyers. So it's not something new to be local. We were more local and we became more and more global. But it's true that at the same time, we absolutely have developed a very close link on each individual market. Markets does not mean auctions. Markets needs places where we have buyers. So it's very, very important. But we also have these 2 movements. It is really very different from your activities.
How many countries are you present in?
So we have 10 sale rooms in the world, and we have 54 offices in about 40 countries. So we are all over the continents, and it represents about 450 or 480 sales a year.
Wow. And representatives even more then, presumably?
54 offices.
54 offices,
yes, 54
right.
offices. So it means in France we have a few offices, mostly Paris and Bordeaux, and then a few representatives. But also in Germany we have maybe 4 or 5. In Belgium we have 2, etc. So in some European, all the European countries, we have many offices. But in China now we have 2 offices. So it's really something that has expanded a lot. And we have offices in Mexico, in Rio de Janeiro, in Korea, in Taiwan, etc. In Dubai, of course, we have an office in Dubai. I don't remember. So if it's in Bogota or in New Delhi, but we have one in India, etc. So it's really, the purpose is really at the same time to find vendors and buyers, but we have developed exactly going with the development of the economy and where we can find new buyers, because our purpose is always to find new people, of course, to buy.
Thank you. So now we're going to go to Nanne. Nanne, so TEFAF, super duper established, long time, renowned art fair, moves to America, where it holds not 1 but 2 fairs a year. So can you tell us what was the thinking behind this? Why did you go to America?
Well, TEFAF has always been a hybrid in the whole fair industry, so to say. Very much driven by a dealer community, and actually quite a diverse dealer community. That's why from the get-go, TEFAF always represented basically every category in the art world. And then it has never been a local fair. I saw the beautiful fair here at the Carrousel du Louvre, which is a very strong local fair. Nothing wrong about that. It's actually very interesting to see. Very high quality, mostly Parisian dealers and mostly Parisian clients. TEFAF used to be a small local fair in Delft. Well, I'm Dutch originally. I moved to New York in '96. So you have a small country and then a small city. That's not going to work. So they moved to Maastricht in the south of Holland, where you are actually very close to a more, almost a global market. You have Paris nearby. You have Aachen and Düsseldorf. I mean, there are many major cities within 5 hours distance. So that sort of already international fair thought, what can we do to actually get more people to come to Maastricht? Because let's face it, I love Maastricht, and they really believe that they are a very important city, which they are, but it's not naturally the kind of city where everyone in the world will go to. You need an incentive to get there. And that's why we actually branched out to New York, because let's face it, in the end, New York is the center of the art market, and I actually believe it will be the center for the art market for many more years to come. By the way, global initiatives will actually decentralize the art market, which I only think is good. But we needed a showcase in the biggest art market of the world. And that's why we created 2 fairs. We didn't want to replicate TEFAF, which is huge. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's the largest fair in the world. And then you have all these different categories, which is quite interesting. So we created this massive space, which looks like a permanent showcase for hundreds of dealers. Needless to say, you can't replicate that in New York. So we decided to have a May fair with more modern and contemporary, and a November fair with, in general, more old masters and design and antiquity and jewelry. And of course, our dealers are always a little bit afraid. I've been an art dealer myself for many years. It's definitely a community that doesn't like changes. So many dealers were against it, and guess what? People love it, because you do see new collectors coming from America to Maastricht, which, from an American perspective, is the end of the world.
And what about further expansion? I mean, why stop at America? Why not go to China?
I think you almost answered the question in the way you asked the question, but no, I'm very reluctant for organizations to move globally if you're not really equipped to do so. I mean, the dealer community is ready, but you need an organization to bring an art fair to a new continent, and you really have to build up in a very granular way and a very focused way on what you're doing. I think New York was a challenge. I think the organization did an incredible job. I would not advise anyone with an organization like TEFAF to immediately now go to Tashkent and maybe Beijing. Let's do this right, and then we see what the next steps are.
You're not saying never?
No, I'm like Hillary Clinton. I never say never.
Never say never. So, Rob, right. So you're in the online world. Tell us about how that works.
So Invaluable is a marketplace for auction houses and galleries to extend their reach to bidders and buyers all over the world. So we have auction house clients today in 55 countries, and those are the auction houses and galleries. We have buyers in 180 countries. We really think that global is the new local. As all of us, if I asked everybody to reach into their pockets right now, you will undoubtedly have a device with a screen on it that allows you to transact in virtually any industry around the world, and the art market's no different. As we think about being able to connect with buyers and people who are passionate about art, wherever they happen to reside, wherever they happen to be at any given time. You could be bidding in an auction in Christie's from the sideline of your kid's soccer game. You could be buying art from a TEFAF dealer from the beach. And so that exposure, that reach, that is really the new way that consumers are engaging with art. And it allows us to really get visibility into people's bidding and buying behaviors, what they're passionate about across categories. We've been doing business now with Sotheby's for going on 6 years. We just signed a 4-year extension to that partnership. We do 230 sales with them a year, and yet 90% of the buyers that we bring to Sotheby's are brand new to Sotheby's. And that really, I think, is a testament to the fact that so many consumers, so many younger skewing consumers, folks who are entering into the art world today are doing so via digital channels.
And how do you deal with the problem of regulations between different countries? Because if you buy something purely online, in some countries, certainly in my country, you've got a sort of, you've got 15 days when you can give it back, and there are other regulations. How do you cope with all of that regulatory world?
Yeah, so the international regulations are quite varied. The ivory sale, for example, or wines and spirits, firearms. There are certain things that each and every country may have a different approach on. The local auction houses that we do business with have expertise in that, and so buyers have to sign terms and conditions saying that they are going to adhere to both their local laws as well as international law. Auction houses have to do the same. And so our systems allow you as an auction house or as a gallery to put restrictions on what's sold by geography, for example. So if you're aware that something can't be sold into a particular country, it's quite easy to block it. And then your question around rescission rights, we put rescission rights in our agreements with all of our clients. And the rationale behind that is if you're buying something online, you may not have had the opportunity to see it firsthand. Condition reports can be somewhat truncated on occasion, and so the ability to return that piece in the event that there is, perhaps it wasn't as described is important to us to protect the consumer.
So that's part of it. So Cécile.
You want to say?
Yes, sorry, yes. Is an online operation a threat to you or not? How do you feel?
Well, we use online a lot, and the online bidding or online sales, it's key. It's very key for the development of the auction business. And I think we have about, this year we have about less than 30% new buyers, and half of them were coming to us via online bids. So yes, we need these online bidders. At the same time, we also believe that our business in auction, it's a lot about human relationship, because why people are buying objects is because they trust you, and this trust could be thanks to a fantastic system, but also the trust on the expertise and about the interest of a piece. It's also linked to the relationship you have developed with a specialist or with someone who is going to speak to you about the piece. And this is why we have so many offices everywhere, because when you have an office in Beijing, for example, you can spend time with clients and have events to meet them, and then you speak with them and you understand how they collect. I remember a very something that has been very important for me. It was a few years ago in my previous auction life. We were exhibiting a piece in a Hong Kong venue. It was in an advance of a sale in France. And it was an amazing armchair by Alexandre Noll from the 50s. It's a fantastic armchair that has been made in just one piece of wood, and we were completely fond of these pieces, and we were showing this piece in Hong Kong to all the collectors. Look at this piece, it's amazing. And all the Chinese people who were here, mostly Chinese, Asian, but mostly Chinese people, were looking at this piece. Oh my God, it's so nice. But they were looking at it, and then they were going to see another part of the exhibition where they were a Chinese furniture, classic Chinese furniture exhibition. And they were coming from one armchair to this table, so and so. And they, of course, the 17th or 16th century furniture, Chinese furniture looks super fresh because it was completely cleaned and revarnished. And our 50s piece looks so in bad condition. And we were so happy with the patina, who looks so great. And the journalist came to me and said, you know, they look at your piece because they're interested in how it has been made, first, and second, but if they buy it, they will completely remake it because it looks so old, and Chinese people, they hate to have the feeling that they are seated in a piece that were belonging to someone else before. If you don't go in Hong Kong, you don't get it. And if you don't get it, you are spending hours to sell things in a bad way. Because now I will force. We had a Chinese underbidder for this piece in the end, but of course we adapted the way we were speaking to him about this piece. We explained to him that it was a masterpiece for sure. It was real. It was a reality. But we said, of course, in France we value this patina, but of course we understand that if you buy it from a dealer, it would have been repolished and very easy to do. It was not to say something wrong. We were continuing to say exactly the truth, but there were different ways to say things and to make it understood by foreigners, by a new type category of clients. So this is why I think it's key to continue to have these human relationships that permit to understand the need of your collectors.
One of the things that you said there about trust, I think, is of paramount importance. I think about the Christie's brand. I think about the TEFAF brand. Clearly, these are two organizations that have brands that are built in trust. And so for organizations like Invaluable that are extending the reach of Christie's or TEFAF to a global set of consumers, that brand and that trust in that brand is of paramount importance because the buyer knows that what they're buying from Christie's or what they're buying from a TEFAF dealer is going to be legit. It's going to be something that the brand stands behind. Another way that we're looking to help conquer that fear of buying online and perhaps any lack of trust is through Artman scanners. So we announced earlier this year that we did a partnership with Artman. These scanners allow for super high resolution images, actually thousands of images that are pieced together in ways that, including UV light, that allow a specialist to examine a piece to make sure that it hasn't been damaged, to fly through individual brushstrokes on a piece of art in a way that helps build that trust and that faith in the piece. With automatic damage detection and a biometric passport that goes along, this fingerprint of a piece that goes along with the piece as part of the sale is a really important factor in helping to alleviate any fear.
I can highly recommend everyone to look at Artmin online. I mean, you have it on your website as well, but it's quite fascinating. But to Cecile's point, expertise is indeed something customers want. The challenge, though, is that there's also a whole new group of clients who actually are not afraid of expertise, to want to listen to expertise, but they're not very receptive to, let's say, huge client teams that when I worked at Sotheby's, well, we were colleagues at Sotheby's, and the same thing happened at Christie's, is they started to develop these massive client teams to find new clients. Many people don't really want those people. They want an expert. And that's something where digital accessibility can come in. Because I had many clients who said, if I see that person one more time sitting next to me at the dinner party, I'm going to get my hand back. I'm going to hit her. It's like, so you know, I always say the problem for the auction houses is, apart from all the expertise, listen, I was an auction guy myself, is 90% of the people working at these auction houses look at 0.01% of the client because they want to be associated with those people. And that's your product. That's in a way my product as well. That's what Christie's is looking and Sotheby's is looking at as well. And what we do for TEFAF with our dealer community, individually, they are experts. But they were working really hard to actually reach out to a lot of people. And they had big competitors. Their biggest competitors were the auction houses. And what we can do with TEFAF is you can create a pressured environment, the same kind of pressure you feel at auction, that you see all of a sudden not you're not just you and that dealer. First of all, then all of a sudden you have to trust that dealer and you're in one room. Secondly, you feel, well, this artwork will be here in 2 years as well, because I was a dealer, that's the kind of easiness you want to express. So like, don't worry, it's a great artwork, take your time. Meanwhile, you're thinking, man, buy it now. And that's what you can do at the fair. You can really create a pressured environment, and it has like an auction house or like your online platform. It looks more transparent, and it is actually more transparent, because when a dealer tells you something, well, he's telling it to all these other people as well. So I think the shift that the big auction houses are making is to actually teach the people working for them, not everybody wants a personal relationship with a salesperson, but expertise nobody can ever replace. That's the key in the end.
Rob, I wanted to ask you, because you're in a different situation, you have this huge global network, but it's online. And I think when we talked a little bit about this earlier. If a client actually physically goes to an auction house that they found to see an object that they found through your site, will it be local at that point? Will they, they're not going to go half across the world, are they, if they're in China and they see something? So how does that work? And I think that you feel a little bit different from our other two panelists about this.
Yeah, I'd say for us, there are certainly buyers who use our site for research purposes. They come to our site. We run 17,000 auctions a year, and those auctions are, again, in 55 countries. And so people, as long as the auction houses or the galleries or the dealers that they are doing business with are of the caliber where they have a solid reputation, where there is that trust in the marketplace, very often they'll find a piece and they'll say, you know what, I'm going to actually go see this piece in person. We see clients of ours who go to an auction house and then sit there with an iPad or their iPhone and bid on their device on our system in that auction house, because they're known for perhaps being an expert in a particular piece, and they are concerned that other people in the room will see them bidding if they're raising a paddle, and then everyone else will start bidding because they'll say, oh, that's a real expert in this particular artist. And so we see folks who will go local and say, hey, I'm going to research online, but I want to buy face-to-face. We see many, many more who have trust in the auction houses that we partner with, who are somewhat agnostic as to which auction house or which dealer is selling this piece. They're just interested in the piece. And very often, they don't want the hard sell. Very often they're saying, I am an expert in the piece that I'm buying, and I don't need somebody telling me why it's important or why it's valuable. I have that knowledge myself, or I just love this piece. And for me it's important because I have a passion for this particular artist. And in each of those cases, I'd say we're seeing more and more globalization. And the fact for us that almost half now of the pieces that are being bought on our platform are being bought across international borders. And so, very often that's somebody who says, I'm time-starved, or I like this particular artist and I have a piece in 3 different cities being sold in the same week. And the likelihood of me hopping on a plane to go to each of these locations, it just isn't realistic given my time constraints. I want to be able to bid in all 3 of these auctions. I'm going to do so from the comfort of my home.
So it just makes... I mentioned Dubai particularly because that's a place where Christie still holds auctions, I think. They're not particularly strong. They certainly don't cover the cost of the office and the personnel. So can you tell me why it is that Christie's would be in a market? Is it a question of brand image? Is it a question of reinforcing that trust? Or is it because you may not sell art, but you can sell watches and jewelry? Or why is that?
I think that Christie has been always very good at trying to explore things pretty in advance about locations, because I think they were the first company to exhibit and then to sell in mainland China. Dubai, they started, I think they were the first one as well. And the idea, of course, is to say that there's wealthy people here. We need to know them better, to know if they could be collectors, because it doesn't mean because you have a lot of money that you want to be a collector to buy something. You can buy jewelry or watches or nothing, but at least to be there, to see how people react and to know them better. Again, it's all about really knowing the clients and to understand what you can propose them. So originally the idea was there. And of course, you can have local market. And when you are in Dubai, you have Dubai and the Emirates, but also you are looking to India on your east. And so it is a platform also where a lot of between east and west, and between Asia and America, you are exactly in the middle. So it's also a location that has been considered for many of these movements. Also in Dubai, you have an international community which is expanding, that permits to think about new clients. Well, now that was expanding at that time when they created, that's true. So it's still existing. The activity at auction is it's weaker than it was. We still have an office. It's about, we have not that many clients. We have a few, they are still important, and it's a kind of, I don't really know how to say that in English, veilleuse. You know, it's like in a veil situation to see how things will develop. It's true that this market hasn't matched exactly the results that were expected. But at the same time, on the opposite, in China, we have sale in Hong Kong and in mainland China, and we are the only auction house to do both. And in fact, the two sales are very complementary. To sales location, sorry.
Yeah. So how, I mean, this is really to all three of you, how do you choose a market to expand in? What are the criteria? It's quite interesting already what Cécile has said about why they chose particularly Dubai, but what about other markets? And for example, where is your home base, so to speak?
So we're based in Boston, in the United States, but we have offices all over the world.
How many offices do you have?
16 now.
16.
Yeah.
In every continent?
Not everybody, but most.
Yeah.
You know, in some cases, if we're launching a new market, we might just have 2 or 3 people working there. You know, for us, so much of it is based on where the auction houses and the galleries are. Also, wealth is a major factor. High net worth individuals and concentration of high net worth individuals is important to us as well. I'd say, you know, for us, high net worth individuals live all over the place. And so, so many of them find us because of the lots that we have for sale, the pieces that we have for sale. That 54% of our traffic is organic. People, we're not actively out there pursuing, we're posting 100,000 items for sale on any given day, and those people are actively searching for them. And so many of our long-term clients almost find us by accident. They're searching for an artist, they find him valuable, they see 3 or 4 pieces from that artist for sale at auction or from one of our galleries, and they will register for their first sale, and then, of course, that relationship blossoms over time.
With us, needless to say, with my TEFAF hat on, it's a different kind of situation. For TEFAF, it's really important to look at the kind of people that buy the kind of art you can buy at TEFAF. And then you not only talk about high net worth individuals, but you very much talk about the museum community. Especially in America, there are so many well-funded museums with very engaged benefactors who like to travel. They travel with their staff, with the curators of the museum. And that was one of our goals of New York as well, because America is a very big country, and to go from Milwaukee directly to Maastricht is not the obvious trip to make. But for these curators to come to New York for the first time and see the level of quality and the level of expertise of the dealer community helps to get these people to come to Maastricht. So it's not necessarily a traditional marketplace, but it's very much an expert kind of marketplace. And New York, to that respect, makes a lot of sense.
Cécile, it's a question for you. Is there a danger of diluting too much the sort of the headquarters, the head? If you have too many offices around the world, how does the financing work that? Because, as we've said, there are perhaps some markets that are not particularly strong from the point of view of sales, and yet, so is local possibly a threat to the centre, or is it a good balance?
Well, I think what happened is that some offices that were auction locations became offices or reduced activity at auction. I will think about Milan or Amsterdam. That became smaller offices. So in the mainland European countries, there are a few less auction rooms, but still offices, or smaller, just reducing the number of staff because it's becoming more a sourcing country. And then in other location, develop the activities because we are creating sale rooms. So it's a kind of reallocations, but globally, we need to maintain this visibility in the European countries who are more sellers position, well, mostly sellers, not not only, but mostly sellers. I don't think there's a dilution. I think it's really organized around 4 main sale rooms that are New York, London, Hong Kong, and Paris, even if Paris is a smaller one, and we expect it will expand probably in the next future to become the European platform, except London, for continental Europe. And then you have a few other locations like Zurich, Milan for maybe much less activity, but still existing. Amsterdam still existing at Christie's, and so another one in China, not just Hong Kong, etc. So we have it's organized around 4 main locations plus a few others. I don't know how long it will continue, these small auction sites, sorry, but I don't think there's at the moment a kind of dilution. I really feel that it really shows really our presence everywhere, and that a client who is coming for a sale in New York could be a French client coming from Paris to New York, or he could attend a fair in Hong Kong and then pass by the office in Hong Kong. This community has started to travel a lot. The more important, the more, I would say, not the more, the more people that are really the big collectors that are really traveling. It's not the case of all the collectors, of course, but you have this it's not a dilution. It looks like more a sense of visibility everywhere for the brand.
But the 2 brands, Sotheby's and Christie's, are incredible strong brands. I mean, even if you look in moments of recession or managerial problems at one of the 2 auction houses, it hardly affects the amount of sales. It's surprising. It's very hard, I believe, for anyone who wants to become a new trading platform to actually compete with that brand name. I'm not saying that you cannot compete with them, but you can actually compete with them, but in collaboration with them. Because those 2 brand names are incredible. And that's what we try to achieve with TEFAF as well. Also, one of the reasons why we went to New York. I've been living in New York since 1996, and I always believed TEFAF was the world's most important fair, because I was Dutch, and when I was small, I already went there. And then you come to New York, and you talk to art collectors, they TEFAF? I mean, what a weird name. What is that? I can tell you now, if you're in New York City and you're among collectors, everybody knows what TEFAF is. So we try to borrow that a little bit from you, the way you've built it up, because there's not a single individual dealer who can build up such a brand name as you can, as the umbrella organization, like what Art Basel has done. But the brands, the standing of the brand in the art market is very important, very important.
I wanted to really particularly to ask Rob and Nanne about the employees that are in your regional offices, in your case in America. Is it important when you have somebody like, for example, there are a few cases of French galleries who've expanded abroad. Lelong went to New York, sorry, and then came back. Emmanuel Perrotin is one of the few who's, and he has, when he expands, and for example, the foreign galleries that have gone into Hong Kong or Shanghai, they always have somebody local. Is that very important to have local employees, to have what Cécile was telling us about having knowledge on the ground?
I think it's crucial, but you always have to be very, very careful. I mean, it was public. Everybody read it in the newspaper. We actually took control of the entity that ran our fairs in New York, not because we didn't like them, but we really felt it's important that everybody who works for a brand, because we're talking about brands, understands the brands. That's why Larry Gagosian is so successful. He manages, and can hardly be personally anymore because there's so many people working for Gagosian. Negocian is a Freudian slip. He actually really manages to explain to everyone working at Gagosian what that means. It's a certain kind of business model, very competitive business model, and everybody working there is wired that way. I'm not saying we want to wire people in a special way, but we really want everybody to understand at TEFAF what the brand stands for. And now we have we had a local team in New York.
Yes,
we didn't fire anyone, we kept them all, but we made sure that they integrated with the team which is now in Amsterdam. They used to be in a very small village in the Netherlands, which didn't make much sense either. Now you have the Amsterdam and the New York team, and they actually don't even talk about the distinction between Amsterdam and New York. It's incredible what you can do with just integrating one team of professionals and explain to them what it actually means to work for one organization. Very, very successful part of the business model of TEFAF.
For us, the reason we're in as many countries as we are is because I also believe that local relationship is important. In our case, the team member who works for Invaluable is the local relationship holder for the auction houses and the galleries in that region. Part of it's language barriers and certainly time of day. They want to be able to call somebody in real time, being able to engage. This morning was meeting with Art Basel and TEFAF, and sorry, not TEFAF, Tejan. These are clients of mine, and they are amongst the top auction houses in the world. And so when I'm in Paris, I like to spend time and get to see them. They have local relationship managers here in Paris because of the day-to-day interactions with those companies. I would also say in terms of the brand, and I think Art Basel and Tejan are great examples of this. I mean, these are clearly some of the top auction houses in the world, and yet they don't have the marketing dollars to compete with the Christies or the Sotheby's of the world. And so, in TEFAF is another great example. By bringing together a bunch of dealers, galleries, they can elevate all of their brands, and that's really what Invaluable is doing as well. We are not spending the marketing dollars to the degree of Christie's or Sotheby's. We are bringing together those brands and the brands of thousands of auction houses and galleries around the world to the benefit of all of them, and that there's power in that.
You must be able to tell where people are bidding from. You know exactly?
Yes.
I mean, there was a panel earlier today about big data. You missed it because I think you were in a meeting. But are you able to exploit that in any way?
So yes, I mean, so we know where the buyers